Good evening. All right, so we're recapping the topic of factorization. You already know that factorization, once they use the term factorize, it can be one of four types. You have the HCF, highest common factor, difference between two squares, factorization by grouping, and quadratic. Now, in order to understand any of these, we must make sure that we're clear on the highest common factor. So we had some steps. You look at each term. Remember, a term could be a number alone, a letter alone, or even a number and a letter. And your terms are separated by an addition or subtraction sign. So you look at each term and you pull out the HCF of the numbers. You look at the letters of each term. If there's a letter in common throughout all the terms you have, you pull out that letter and you pull out the one with the lower power. Then you divide each term by the HCF which you pulled out. All right, so let's see. So let's say they gave us this one. So they gave us 5x cubed plus 10x. Now for this one, it has two terms. Remember, each term is separated by an addition or subtraction sign. So in this case, I have two terms. I want to look at each term and I'm going to pull out the number in common. So in this, not the number in common, but the factor in common. So if you are able to look at the numbers 5 and 10 and pull out the factors, the highest common factor of both, then you pull it out. If you have trouble finding out the HCF, then you look at each number and you look at each of them, how you can multiply to get that number. So in order to get 5, the only way I could multiply to get 5 is 1 times 5. So 1 and 5 are the only factors of 5. Then look at 10. In order to get 10, I could get 1 times 10 and 2 times 5. So 1, 2, 5, and 10 are all the factors of 10. So the highest factor, which is in common, because 1 and 5 are in common, right? It doesn't work out like that all the time. It's 1 times 5, and I'll show you. But 1 is in common, and 5 is also in common. So the highest factor will be 5. So I pull out my HCF. Then look at your letters. I have X throughout all the terms given. So that means I have to pull out X. And if it is that I have X in common, I am going to have to pull out the one with the lower power. Remember, if it does not have a power on the letter, you understand that it is 1 to the power of 1. So I'm going to pull out that one, but I don't have to put the power of 1 here because we understand that even without that power of 1, it is to the power of 1. Next, I have to divide each term by my HCF. That's what we just pulled out. So I'm going to divide each by 5x. So 5 is going to 5 once. And then x cubed comes like saying x times x times x. All divided by x. So I could cancel this one with this one. And I'm left with x by x, which is x squared. So I'm going to put inside the remainder, which will be x squared. You can also use your rules of indices instead of doing it this way.
I real slow, right? So that's over like 2 steps, please, like the last 2 steps. I know
All
it's
right. So
basically
with the
the same thing
division,
as that we did.
right? So you have to divide both of these. So 5x cubed, it's the same as saying 5 times x times x times x. Because remember, anytime you have a number attached to a letter, we understand that it's multiplying. So like 4a, we understand that this is 4 times 8. Anytime you have something raised to a particular power, such as 5x cubed, it will be 5 times x cubed. And x cubed, anything cubed or to the power of 4 or squared, remember you're multiplying that base number by itself, the number of times given by the power. So in this case, we had 5x cubed, and then we're going to divide it by my HCF, which is 5x. So just as with fractions, where if you were to cancel, remember you cancel top and bottom, so 5 is going to 5 once, and then x could go into x once. So I'll be left with x times x alone. And x times x is the same as saying x squared. So that remainder is going to go inside of my bracket. All right, so let's look at the next one. You're now going to have to divide the HCF into that second two. So you have 10x divided by 5x. So the 5 could go into the 10 2 times, and then the x's, x could go into x1. So I'll be left with 2. So when I factorize this, I'll get this. All right, so those steps are very important when it comes to factorization.
Yes,
Uh-huh.
5x.
Just now you're breaking up. I'm not hearing what you're saying clearly. All right, so let's look at another one. All right, so let's say they gave us So let's say they gave us this one. So they gave you 6p squared plus 2p. So you follow your steps. You look at your numbers first and you pull out the highest in common. Now the highest common factor, you look at your numbers that you have, which are 6 and 2. So the highest number which can go into both 6 and 2 without leaving a remainder is 2. Then you look at your letters. Once you have letters throughout, you pull out that letter, but you pull out the one with the lower power. So in this case, I'm going to pull out the one with the lower power, which is p. P to the power of 1. But we know that p to the power of 1 is p. Next, I'm going to divide each by my HCM. That's what I pulled out. So I'm going to divide each of these by 2p. So I look at my numbers. I divide my numbers like normal. So 2 could go into 6 3 times. And then p squared divided by p. P squared means p by p. So I'm just breaking it down for you, but you can also use your rules of indices. I didn't do it in class as yet, so that's why I'm doing it this way for now. So p squared is p by p. So p squared divided by p, I'm going to cancel. So p could go into p once. So I'll be left with p alone here. So just p, 1p. So inside, remember here I'll have p. I explained it here. So inside I'm going to put my remainder after I divided it, which will be 3p. Then 2 could go into 2 ones, and p could go into p ones. Anything divided by itself is 1. So inside I'll put 1, right? Because this broke down to be 1 over 1, which is 1. So when I factorize this, I got this. All right, so factorizing by grouping is based on this. So I'm skipping for now the difference between 2 squares, and I'm going to factorization by grouping. Now, the difference with factorization by grouping is that you're going to have 4 terms. So we have factorization by grouping. All right, so we have factorization by grouping. Now, how do I know I have to factorize by grouping? Is because I'm going to be given 4 terms. Remember, when we factorize by grouping, it's where we have 4 terms. And remember, terms could be a letter only, a number only, or a letter and a number. And they're separated by an addition or a subtraction sign. So each place I have an addition sign, it could be a subtraction sign as well. So once you're given 4 terms, you know it's factorization by grouping. All right, so we have some easy steps with respect to this. So let's say they gave us this one. XY plus 3x plus 3y plus 9. Now I have 4 terms. 1, 2, 3, 4. Remember, term could be a number alone. It could be a letter alone or letters alone, or it could be numbers and letters. Once you are given 4 terms, we have some simple steps. 1, group them into pairs. Right? So I'm just going to pair these up. So I'm going to pair this one with this one and pair this one with this one. Then factorize the first pair by the HCF method, which is what we were just doing. So I'm going to factorize this first pair using the HCF method. So I'm looking at this part only. So I look at them and I pull out what's in common. No numbers. We don't have a, well, the HCF of the numbers will be 1. Right? But I don't have to write 1 because it's understood. So I'm going to look at the letters and I have X here and I have X here. So I have X in common throughout with these two. So I pull out the X. Following the same rules, I'm going to divide each of these by what I pulled out, which is X. So these two, remember, it's only the first two or the first pair. So I'm going to divide each of these by my HCF X. X could go into X1. So I'll be left with Y here plus X could cancel the X. So I'll be left with 3. So I factorize the first pair using the HCF method. My next step is I'm going to copy what is in the brackets. Or could I use duplicate? I'm going to double it. So I'm going to copy this and I'm going to paste exactly what is here. So I'm going to copy and paste. You know, on the computer, when you press copy and paste, exactly what you copied, it's going to paste. So I'm going to copy and paste it right next to it. I'm duplicating it. Then, some easy, yeah. Then, I'm going to look and see what I could put outside here, that when I multiply it back, I'll get back what's on top here. Now, in order for me to get back 3y plus 9 from this, it's going to be plus 3, because positive 3 times y will give me positive 3y, and then 3 times 3 is 9. So I look to see what I could multiply by in order to give me back what's up here. All right, so after this, I'm basically going to factorize again, but some students, just a second, guys. All right, sorry about that, Dan. All right, so after I copy and paste, I'm going to factorize again, right? But some students, when we say that we're going to factorize again, they get a little confused, right? So they get a little confused. So what we can do is I'm going to rephrase it in a different way, which is we are basically going to pull out one of the duplicated brackets. So you're going to take one of the duplicated brackets and then everything that is not in the bracket, we're going to put it into the bracket next to it. We're basically factorizing it again, but when I use it in terms like that, some students, they get confused. Right, so basically, you're going to take out one of the duplicated brackets, and then everything that is not inside of the bracket, I'm going to put it into another bracket next to it. Now, just as before we needed HCF to understand factorizing by grouping, you need to know this in order to understand factorizing quadratic equations. But I'm not moving on to the quadratics just yet. All right, so let me put that into words so that you are able to practice it. So you duplicated what was in a bracket, looking at right, so looking all right, so looking at the previous, can I see the previous line? So when I say line, I mean this one here. So after you duplicate what's in the bracket, you're going to be looking at the previous line. You can see or check right? So you're looking at the previous line, you'll check what you can multiply by to get it back. Right? So you're looking to see what I can multiply this by to get back what's on top. Then the last step is that you pull one of the duplicated brackets right? So you pull one of the duplicated brackets and then the remainder, whatever is outside, goes in another bracket. I'll show you with another example. All right, so let's see. So I'm going to work another example. All right, so let's say they gave us this one. So they gave us A plus AB. Now, just a little advice when it comes to factorization. Make sure you copy down the correct sum or the correct expression, I should say. The reason why is because if you make one error, you're going to waste your time and it's not going to work out and it's going to be frustrating. So what I recommend is for factorization, when you're copying your question, just double check it before you start putting in the work on it. All right, so for us to know it's factorization by grouping, it's going to be 4 things, right? So I have 1, 2, 3, 4. Remember, they're all going to be separated by an addition or a subtraction sign. All right, so the next step is you're going to group them into pairs. So I can draw a line under them to group them. So I'm pairing them up. Then I'm going to factorize the first pair, that's this pair, using HCF method, which is what we're doing all the time. So you look at each of the two and you pull out what's in common. There's no numbers that I could pull out. So we pull out, well, we're actually pulling out one, right? We understand it's pulling out one, right? But I look at the letters, I have A in common. So I'm going to pull out A. I cannot pull out B because B is not common with both of them. Next, I'm going to divide each of these by the HCF A. So A could cancel with A. Anything divided by itself is 1. I cannot leave it blank. I must put 1. Right? So it cancels in order to give 1. Then for this one, the A's will cancel. So I'll be left with B alone. Next, I'm going to duplicate what is in the brackets. Press copy and paste exactly what is in it, sign and everything. And then I ask myself, what do I multiply this by in order to get this back? So in this case, look at this, I have 1 here. Now you know anything multiplied by itself, anything multiplied by 1 gives itself. So if I put 2b here, 2b times 1 will give me that 2b. And then 2b times b, the b by the b will give me b squared. So it's going to be plus 2b into 1 plus b. The sign is also important. And then pull out one of the duplicated brackets. So I'm going to pull out one of the duplicated brackets, which will be 1 plus b. And then everything else that's outside, which will be this. What did you say?
Could you go back a bit?
Up to which one? This one? All right, so you may have to tell me where you got lost. All right, so I was asked to go back a bit. So I'll erase and start this part over. Now, the thing about it is we have to practice these steps, okay? Now, in mathematics, we have 2 P's, practice and patience. You have to apply both of them. So when we do them, you now have to go over them and practice them with these steps. So I made this step easy that we can follow, but we have to go back over them. So let's go back. So I'll go back. All right, so you know they told you to factorize. You have 4 types of factorization, but you know this is factorizing by grouping because you have 4 terms. Once you have 4 terms, we're going to apply our rule where we're going to group them into pairs. So we're going to pair up the first 2 terms and pair the second 2 terms. Then you're going to factorize the first pair using the HCF method. So you have to factorize the HCF method So what you do is you look at what you could pull out that's in common. I have A here and I have A here. So I'm going to pull out my A because the A is in common. Same thing as before with the factorizing by the HCF. I'm going to divide each of these two terms alone by what I pulled out. Anything divided by itself is 1. 5 divided by 5 is 1. 100 divided by 100 is 1. That's the rule. Anything divided by itself is 1. So A divided by A, when I cancel it, it's going to be 1, right? So A into A, 1. But I have to put the 1 because if I don't put it, when I'm expanding it back, I will not get this back. Because remember, your goal is when I expand it, I could get this back. Then plus A could go into A once. So I'm left with 1 times B, which is B. So I factorize my first 2 terms by HCF. The next step, it's telling me duplicate what's in the bracket. So whatever's in the brackets, I'm going to copy it and paste it. Now, you have to remember that whatever you multiply here, I have to get this back. So A times 1 is A. A times B is AB. So I have to get back what's on top. If I had to multiply it, so what I do next is I ask myself, this has to be multiplied by something out here in order to give this back. So look at this. What would I multiply by 1 to get 2b? Now there's a law in mathematics which states anything multiplied by 1 gives itself. If I have 5 times 1, I'll get 5. If I get 2b times 1, I'll get 2b. Anything multiplied by 1 gives itself. So for me to get what was out here, I checked to see what I could multiply out here by what's inside to get this back. So 2b, or in fact, positive 2b times 1 will give me positive 2b, and then positive 2b by b. Remember, that comes like saying 2b times b. The b by b will be b squared. Anything multiplied by itself, we can replace it with the square of it. So when I multiply this, I'll get this back. So I know that that's the missing piece to fill this expression. My next step, it tells me, pull out one of the duplicated pairs. So one of the duplicated pairs will be 1 plus b. And then whatever's outside, I put that into the other brackets. So I'll have a plus 2b. So I'm going to put those that are outside of the brackets together in a next bracket. And that's my answer for when I factorize. I'll do another one. All right, so let's look at another one. And then I'll question. So it's like repeated steps. So they gave us, let's say they gave us one with numbers. All right, so let's look at this one. AC plus 4A plus BC plus 4E. I mean 4B. Now here's the thing. Remember when I was telling you guys that with mathematics, some of the rules you may have to put it on the flashcards so that you see it often while you're doing it. This could be one of those set of rules, right? Because you're going to want to practice it several times in order for it to stick. So same thing, they told you to factorize. Factorize means that factorize means that we're going to move from an expanded state like this to where I'm going to introduce brackets. Factorization is the opposite of expansion. Yes. So once you say factorize, you have to decide which of the four it is. Is it HCF? Is it factorization by grouping? Is it difference between two squares, or is it quadratic? Now, how do I know that it is factorizing by grouping? Because we'll have four terms. And when we're given four terms, we're going to pair them. So I'm going to put my focus on the first pair first. Look at the two. What do I have in common that I can pull out? A. A is in common throughout. For the number, this is 1. Anytime you have a number, there's no number in front of your letters, we understand it's 1. So you basically pulled out 1A. Yeah? So for the numbers, you pulled out 1. Because only 1 could go into both 1 and 4 without leaving a remainder. Next, you divide each of those two by what you pulled out. And the remainder goes inside of the brackets. So A, we're going to A1. I'll be left with C, so C goes inside. Plus, A will cancel with this A, so I'll be left with 4, so 4 goes inside. Once you factorize correctly, you're going to duplicate what is in the bracket. So I'm going to click copy and paste. I'm pasting exactly what I have in my bracket. I'm duplicating it. Then I'm going to look at the previous line, which is this line, to the end here. And I want to see what could I multiply outside of this by inside of this to get this back. So whatever is outside, when I multiply by C, I'm supposed to get BC. And when I multiply by 4, I'm supposed to get 4B. So that's going to be positive B, because B times C will give me BC, and B times 4 will give me 4B. After that, I'm going to pull one of the duplicated pairs, well, brackets. So I'm going to pull one of them, so C plus 4. No problem, tell me once you're back. And then everything outside, I'm going to put it inside of the next bracket. So this is outside, and this is outside of the bracket. So that is going to go in a next bracket next to it. All right, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to ask for you guys to take this down. Once you have it, let me know by putting the letter F in the chat. And then, yes, tell me once you finish with this, and then we're going to work one together. All right, so tell me once you're finished. All right, so anyone is not finished, let me know.
Lamas, I finished.
You finished? All right, so I have some still working. So here's what I'll do. See, I could cover this part. All right, awesome. Tell me once you are still. All right, so let's look at one. So let's try one together. Now, use your rules. Even if you have to put it on a flashcard, all of these little rules that you want to remember, put it on a flashcard and use them while you, in a test at school, you are not allowed to use it. However, for your homework and while you're practicing, you want to get practice from them. So you want to see them often in order to get it. Look at this one. I have xy minus 2x plus 4y minus 8. It's factorizing by grouping. Now, if you don't get this quadratic equation, it's going to give you trouble, okay? So let's make sure that we get this, we understand this, because this is actually one of the steps in quadratic equations. All right, so we factorize by grouping. You look at them. You pair them. You're going to look at your first pair, pull out what's in common. So the only thing in common between the two will be the x. I have to divide each of these by my HCF. So x could go into x1, so the remainder of y goes here. X could go into x, so I'll be left with minus 2.
Let's get slow, you know. Slow. Well, it's slow.
All right,
No,
so I
I
divided. All right, no problem. So I divided each of these by my HCF x. After this, whatever you have in this bracket, you're going to copy it and paste it. So it's like on your computer, you're going to hit copy and you're going to paste the exact thing. So I'm copying this sign and everything I'm going to paste. Then ask yourself, now this, when I multiply by whatever is here, has to give me back this. So look at it. In order to get 4y from y, what would I multiply by y to get 4y? 4, positive 4. And then in order to get negative 8, I'll be multiplying the same 4 by the negative 2 to give me 4 2s are 8. So whatever I bring here has to be able to multiply this out to get this back. Next step, I'm going to pull out one of those brackets that I had. So I'm going to pull out one of them. So that's y minus 2. So it comes like I'm factorizing again, right? But when I explain it like that, not until you understand it fully, then you'll be able to appreciate the fact that I'm factorizing again, right? So for now, we'll just see it as I'm pulling out one of those two. And then everything else that is not in the brackets, I'm going to put that into the brackets next to it. I'm going to put them together in the bracket next to it. And that's it. Now, this part is very important. Now, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do another one. And then for this recording purposes, I'll just show you the quadratic. But next class, for homework, we're going to be revising these. All right, so let's look at another one. I'm going to cover here in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm covering this piece here. All right, so let's look at another one like this. You know, if they tell you to factorize, there are 4 terms, 1, 2, 3, 4. Remember, term could be a number, it could be a letter alone, it could be letters, it could be a number alone, or a number and a letter. So, but once you have 4 terms, we follow the factorization by grouping. You pair them up. Next, you look at your first pair. So I'm just focused on that first pair first. See what's in common. I only have y in common. So I could pull out the y. Then I divide each of these by the HCF, which I pulled out. Y could go into y1. Y could go into y1. So I'll end up with x minus 3. Once you get this, you're going to copy and paste. Look at what's outside that I could multiply to get what's up here. I like to look at the first thing first. So like, what do I multiply by x to get 4x? Positive 4. 4 times x will give me 4x. And then 4 times negative 3 will give me negative 12. Next, I'm going to pull out one of those brackets that would have been duplicated. So x minus 3. And then whatever is not in the brackets, I'm going to put them together in the bracket next to it. And that's it. All right. So for this recording, right, so like when you guys want to study factorization and so on, I'm just going to show you guys the factorization by grouping to show you not the factorization, my people, the quadratic equations to show you how these come into play. All right. So we're going to come back to the quadratics, but it's just for the recording purposes. I want it on one recording. All right, so a quadratic equation is always in the form of ax squared plus bx plus c. Right, so let's say they gave you something like this. X squared plus 8x plus 12. Now, a is the number in front of x. So in this case, x squared doesn't have a number, so we understand that it's 1. So that means a in this case is 1. B in this case is 8. The number in front of x is b, that'll be 8. And c, which is your constant, will be 12. Now we have some simple rules. 1, multiply. I'm coming back to this. I just want it on one recording. So you're going to multiply the value of a by c. So a times c is going to be 12 times 1, which is 12. Next, you want to find two numbers which almost finished. When multiplied, gives the product in step 1 right? So you find two numbers which when multiplied gives the product in step 1, which in this case is 12, but when added or subtracted, gives the value of b. So what I like to do is I like to look at all the different ways I could multiply to get that product that we have. So I could multiply 1 times 12. I go in ascending order. 2 times 6, 3 times 4, so that I can see the loop. So which pair, when I add or subtract, will give me the value of b, which is 8. So that's 6 and 2. Because when I multiply those two numbers, I'll get the product from step 1, which is 12. And when I add the 2, it's going to give me the value of b. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take those two numbers and I'm going to use it to break up my middle term. So my first term remains the same. My last term remains the same, but my middle term, I'm going to break it up using those two numbers. So instead of 8x, I'll have 2x plus right? So basically those two numbers that I got will break up my middle term to make 4 terms. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, because 6x plus 2x is not 8x. So all I did was I broke up my middle so that I could make 4 terms. And then when we have 4 terms and you have to factorize, are we not going to factorize by grouping? See the link? So you factorize. In common here, I have x in common. So I'm going to divide each of the 2 by x. X will go into x squared, x times. So x goes inside. Then x will cancel with x, I'll be left with plus 2. Same as before, copy what's in the brackets and paste. Look to see what I can multiply by outside in order to give me what's up here. So I have x here. In order to get 6x up here, I need to multiply x by positive 6. And you know it's correct because 6 times 2 will give me the 12. Next, pull out one of my brackets, so that's x plus 2. And then whatever is not in the brackets, I join them together for dinner in the next bracket. And that's it.